Say hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to our day.
Welcome to our day.
Oh, good boy.
Our day, rock and roll.
That was the best. Be Freaky Fridays on a Thursday.
It's Thursday. Oh. Good to know.
Yes. It is so stinking hot.
It is. This is why we're downstairs. Got the fan on, got both doors open.
Yeah. But
So much.
yes.
Hi.
I am here.
You're just ahead in the bed.
No. This is the next bit of the LGBTQ plus series. I think this is episode 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of a follow-on from episode 2. We mentioned about the whole trying to conceive and ways to become parents, and that it's not all that easy. And the first thing really is when talking about trying to conceive to anybody, and we mentioned about the difficulties about having to go to a clinic or doing it at home privately but not maybe having easy access to like a sperm donor, generally the first thing that you get asked is, why don't you just adopt?
The majority of people suggest it.
Yeah, firstly, why is it that people, part of the LGBTQ plus community, always get told, why don't you adopt? Straight couples, if they can't, like, when they first get together and they're discussing having children, whatever, and how difficult it might be, they don't necessarily get told, why don't you just adopt? Normally it's, why don't you get IVF? Or something like that. And it's hard because for some people adopting is fine, it may be the route that they want to take. For Sophie and I, we always wanted to adopt, but there's still this want of a biological child, and I think that goes for everybody, like, well, majority of everybody, that the need to have your own child kind of thing is so much greater. And I think that just comes from within, that just knowing that you want you in like a mini-me. And even though if Sophie was to carry it wouldn't be biologically my child, or vice versa or whatever, it's still knowing that that child is a part of someone that you love.
And still, like, in our situation, it would be a case of it's still our child because we put that child there.
Yeah.
We chose to put that child there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we did everything we needed to do to bring that child into the world.
Yeah. Like, we would get to feel the baby, like, kick in, and seeing the tummy move, and seeing them on pregnancy scans, and hearing the heartbeat. And when you adopt, you don't necessarily, unless it's adopt from pregnancy,
Which isn't...
it's quite rare.
Does that even happen in the UK?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of it happening.
Yeah,
so
it can
that's
do.
how rare it is.
Yeah. It's kind of like you miss that whole section of that child's life. And yes, there may be scans, or there may be photos or whatever, but you're never going to get that stage back. And for some people that could be quite a big loss. The other thing that is one of the very first things that happen is people saying, when you're gonna have a baby, when you're gonna make us a grandchild, or make us grandparents, or when am I gonna become an aunt or an uncle, or just any of that. And it creates so much pressure.
And we've spoken to some family members who were doing it, but every time we see them, if we wanted to talk to them about anything, like literally every time, the first thing it would be is, "You're pregnant," and we'd just be like, "No."
We need to come over, we need to discuss something with you. Literally the first thing is, "You're pregnant," and it's like, no.
But on the other hand, at times, yes, we were, but it wasn't.
It was just between us.
Yeah, and we ended up losing those pregnancies. So.
And it's tough because most people like to wait until like the first scan, or 15 weeks, because it's that safety buffer zone that it's a milestone reached and you're likely to still remain pregnant. But when you have early losses like we have 3 times, we have kept it to ourselves because we wanted to do like a nice pregnancy announcement with scans, and we just wanted that the first few weeks to just be us and things like that. But then when you lose a child, you don't have that support.
No, and like nobody knew that they existed.
No, we didn't tell people or inform people.
Until we lost our third child.
Yeah. And it wasn't until our second child that we actually named our first, because we were just going through the motions, and without having named them, it just felt kind of like they didn't exist.
Yeah, because it was really blasé, wasn't it? Because like I went to the doctors because I suddenly started really heavy bleeding, and then she basically just said, "Yeah, you were pregnant, but you're not anymore, so you just have to wait and sort of
ride it out."
Yeah, and then I ended up like, and then that was it, and then I ended up bleeding
really
pretty much
bad,
non-stop for like a year or more.
Yeah.
And
it was awful.
Yeah, and like you just think like if the doctor's just like, "Yeah, I mean you were pregnant, but not anymore.
But here's some support." It's
there was nothing.
No.
Was there? And it was really hard.
Yeah. And
like we were kind of made to feel like nobody else knew about it, or like nobody else would have acknowledged it.
No.
So why would people accept that we want to acknowledge it?
And even now, there's only certain people that we can talk to and actively speak about our babies, Sky, River and Quinn, and it not feel really awkward or horrible. Like,
sorry, I was just going to say, we've even been told by some people, like, well,
why are you putting their names in the card or something?
The child, you didn't see me doing that. And
you
just think, well, okay.
Everybody grieves differently, and it's just, we're big advocates for a miscarriage and baby loss and things like that, and we do talk about them regularly. And when it is Baby Loss Awareness Month, we do.
You do what you can.
Yeah. It's just really awkward. And then with regards to adoption, we actually got refused. We've done a video about it. We got refused by 3 different like councils and adoption agencies because I'm in a wheelchair and
we were too fat.
Yeah, and because we support our support network, so they were basically trying to say that we've got no support.
So because both sets of our parents have disabilities, and we are literally like, we support each other. It's not just a case of like
they don't support us. It's literally a one-sided thing. It's we do all the running around and whatever. It's not like that.
No.
But they didn't want to see it like that.
No, they didn't listen at all, did they?
No.
I think that they just picked an excuse, really.
Yeah, so we have tried to adopt 3 times. We even did we're adopting announcement, and afterwards we just felt so shit because we knew it was like we had put that announcement out there and then there was nothing. It's like, well, what do we do now?
Yeah, because technically, according to all of the legal all of the legal criteria in this country, we are able to adopt.
Yep.
We are suitable candidates, but they didn't want to take us on.
And it doesn't mean then that we can, because we've had people say, why don't we adopt from abroad? A, it's extremely expensive. B, some countries will only allow international, like Ukraine I believe it was, they'll only allow international adoption if the child has severe disabilities, I think it is, that would benefit them to be in a different country. And C, to be able to adopt internationally, you need to have an agency in the UK who do all the paperwork and the assessments and the house assessments and the background checks. So if we can't even be accepted for adopting in the UK, they ain't gonna let us adopt abroad.
No, because there was one agency, and they worked at doing large sibling groups or older children or disabled children, and we were just like, well, we know about a lot of sort of disabilities, we deal with disabilities in a day-to-day life.
Our house is adapted for disabilities.
We know how hospital appointments work. We're home 24/7 to be of support.
We can be good advocates because we advocate for ourselves
and all of this stuff. And we were just like, this is great because we will be like the best possible parents to any child, but to a disabled child we would be perfect.
Yeah.
And just
like I used to look after disabled children and stuff as well, so we have all that background. But
and they turned around and said that we don't have enough experience with children.
Yeah. And it's like, how can we get experience when we don't, like, we're not able to conceive naturally?
We don't have children.
We had to have looked after a child in our house, and it's like, well, we can't just pluck a child off the street and start looking after them. Like, how does that work? It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And then obviously with IVF, we did go through to a clinic for a consultation many years ago because we were going to donate our eggs and in return be able to have the funding for us to try to conceive.
Yeah, so basically what would happen is the recipients, we would donate our eggs and then the recipients would fertilise them with either the sperm of the couple or donor sperm, and then they would have the lion's share of the successful ones to be implanted, and then we'd have the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that went well.
Yeah, even then we were both of healthy weight and they still said no because we were on the upper end of the healthy weight, and then because I was on certain medication they wouldn't allow it, and I was on barely any medication then. Then we went to, we contacted another IVF place and it was literally just going to be tens of thousands of pounds. So we knew that that was completely out of the question because there's no way that we could afford it. We then went to the NHS and had a face-to-face appointment, and again they refused, saying we were too big, even though we were of decent weight.
Well, there was different things, weren't there? There was, one, we were too big. Two, we were, like, even if I was small enough and I was carrying, you had to be of a very low weight as well.
Which made no sense whatsoever. Like, what does my weight do to Soph carrying? Yeah,
because it's not like you were donating anything or anything like that. But yeah, so they wouldn't us for that. They also said that we would have to try in the community, in the community 6 times within a year, I think it was.
Yeah.
But it has to be documented. So the fact that we had been doing it privately for years,
I think because we hadn't been going to the doctors and documenting, look, we've been trying this like XYZ amount of times with a partner, and have it documented in our medical notes, it didn't really go for anything.
Yeah, so they basically were saying that we had to go with them and pay for those 6 tries,
which
within
again
12 months
is ridiculously high.
Of which they still wouldn't do anyway because they said about the weight.
Yeah.
They we were told before we went that I'm not sure how it works with same-sex male couples, but we were told with same-sex female couples that we were supposed to be entitled to 1 free try. And then when we got there, they said, "Oh, every council's different. We wouldn't do that anyway."
Yeah.
And so that was another thing that we were told that it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
It's not. And then obviously if you do, there are lots of groups or companies where there are sperm donors like listed or are willing to help people in the community, which is absolutely amazing. However, many of them are in it just to have sex, are in it for a monetary gain, which is illegal in the UK. You can pay for expenses, but you cannot pay for sperm. And then the other difficulty is that, particularly in Cornwall and Devon, there are very little sperm donors. And if you're in the city like London or Bristol or Edinburgh or something like that, perfect. There is a lot of different people. But in
and then
places
you get
like here,
and then you get people saying, well, if it's that difficult, why didn't you just go out for a night out and go home with somebody, get jiggy, and then there you go, pregnant? And you're just like,
it don't work like that. Like for Sophie and I, we feel that to even do natural insemination, which is obviously having sex with a donor, it's wrong. Like we feel wrong because
it's cheating.
Sophie and I are married.
Yeah, it's
and
adultery.
Yeah,
like regardless of the,
it just doesn't sit right
behind it. It's not right.
And then many donors you can just be talking to for months on end, getting to know them, making sure they haven't got any like STIs, and making sure that they're not going to want contact with the child, but we're willing to share updates yearly. They then just don't turn up, or they just ghost you.
Like you even like sometimes have phone calls with them.
Yeah.
And then just
it comes to the date and it's just like you've bought everything that we need to be able to do it, and like supplements and whatever, and then they just don't rock up.
Expensive.
Yeah.
For the starters, and they don't turn up, and then you're just like, well, are you coming or not? And then no reply.
Yeah. It builds your hope up to just be knocked down, and it's just like, you know that you're ovulating because obviously you do ovulation tests, and it's just like, well, there's another month wasted, and like, I'm 31, Soph's turning 29 this year. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, we are still young, but we are getting older. And for every year that passes, we just know that it's just gonna, every month that passes, it's just going to be harder and harder, and it's just one more egg just flushed down the toilet, basically.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And then after all that, with like the whole conception thing, there's the difficulty that in the UK, if you conceive naturally in your own home and you're married, you can both be on the birth certificate. If you are not
By
married,
naturally, you mean like however, like if however it's done, if it's AI or anything, it doesn't have to be like through.
so yeah,
natural.
we could, like, if you got sort of like a donor off of Facebook and they come over and donate, and then we inseminate it and whatever, and we conceive. If you're married, both of us can be on the birth certificate. If you're not, only the person who is biologically related to that child can be on the birth certificate. The only way that both of you can be on the birth certificate when you're not married is by going through a clinic and having IVF. And we think that it's wrong that it can be like that.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's a boyfriend and girlfriend that aren't married, both of them can be on the birth certificate. And it's like, well, where's the rights?
Especially when, like, you don't have to prove, like, that
who
you're
the dad is,
you
whatever.
don't have to prove that you are biologically that child's biological father.
No.
And you can be put on the birth certificate. And yet, you know, it's just
really unfair. There's so many loopholes that you've got to go through and hurdles you've got to jump, and it's not as easy as just having sex with your partner, having a child, both of you being on the birth certificate, you live happily ever after. And obviously this is just from our experience. We don't know it from a two male same-sex family, which would be even difficult because they don't have somebody readily there to carry the child. So we've been trying to conceive now for 8 years, 9 years, 9 years, I think, and it is a few times a year. We've had 3 pregnancies, but they've resulted in 3 losses, and it's heartbreaking because Soph and I, the one thing that we've always wanted in life is to be parents, and it just seems like that is slipping further and further away.
Yeah, like we both grew up wanting big families.
Yeah.
And then
we currently have no earthlies.
And it's crazy how it goes, because we grew up wanting big families, and then like we were in
like 4 or 5 children we wanted.
Yeah, and we were in like straight relationships at like when we were younger, and then we realised that wasn't for us, and then, you know, your ability to have children, so to speak, is, you know, it's going to be more difficult. So you go from wanting like 5 children to, you know, maybe thinking, alright, might start a little bit later, maybe 4, and then... And
now it's just like, we just want one.
We just want one.
One child and we'll be happy.
Yeah. And yeah, and like it always used to be when we have a child and all of that, like when we have a child.
And now it's if.
Now it's if we have a child, and it's heartbreaking.
It is, because we do have a lot of baby stuff, because each time we have been pregnant, we have bought stuff because it is expensive and it's not easy to afford in one big go. So we did it gradually with each pregnancy, and it's like, we don't want to get rid of it, because if we do manage to conceive, we would need to buy it all again. And a lot of the stuff that we've got has got sentimental value to it. and it's just really hard because we're looking at this stuff and it's just sitting there and not being used. And it's a double-edged sword because we need it because it's expensive, but sitting there and watching it just collect dust is just so awful.
And like, I keep thinking, is there going to be a point that we're just sort of sat there and we're just like, it's not going to happen, we need to find a different focus for our lives.
Yeah.
And then, like, you just think, but that is the one thing that we have always wanted more than anything in the world.
And then we see like friends and family and whatever have children, and we are very happy for them, we're over the moon, and then it's just like, but we want this. It's just a really tough subject.
It is. It's really, anybody who's gone through infertility or like anything like it would know this, that it's really hard to be happy for people who are getting pregnant and having children.
And like, we find it really difficult when it comes down to April 1st and it's like everyone doing
out there
fake pregnancy announcements, and it's like,
it's not a joke, don't do it.
No. And it's just,
well done.
It's hard because obviously we don't want to hate on other people's like lives and fun, but there are so many families out there struggling that it just doesn't make it like something to laugh about. So yeah, it's a challenge to become parents, and one that's not easily resolved, and even though it's 2022, it's still so difficult for us to have our dream come true. So yeah, a little bit difficult, but that is it for this vlog. I don't know why that came out so weird.
That came out really weird.
Next vlog, and episode 4 of this series, is going to be talking about how we deal with homophobic neighbours. So yeah.
Watch this out, Alba, no. Watch this space.
Make sure you check in a few days. Hi girls. Red Bull.
Yeah, right there. She looked right at it like, yeah, that one.
Cute. So, thanks for coming on this journey with us. We'll see you in the next episode.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
It's not bedtime. I'm confused. Give me that ball. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? There, it's right there. It's right there.
Aww.